Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Sarthak here, and this is the fourth episode of the Let's Discuss Sports podcast. This is the first time we have ventured outside of football, and I have got prominent cricket writer and cricket journalist Jarrod Kimber with me. Hello, Jarrod. How are you?
Very good.
So, you were recently in West Indies, and England recently lost the Test series to West Indies. How do you make out of that? Because I have seen a little bit of the Test series, and by the time England bounced back, it was already too late. Where do you think West Indies cricket stand as of now with all the things that have been barring them to reach their potential, and all of a sudden they win a series?
Well, I mean, the basic truth with West Indies cricket, and I don't think this has ever not been true, is there's a phenomenal amount of talent over there. We heard about basketball taking away all these players. Well, there aren't too many NBA players with West Indian heritage out there, and there really hasn't been many major ones up until the recent draft pick and Patrick Ewing back in the day, back in the 80s. So uh, this whole idea that the West Indians turned away from cricket isn't really true. There's a lot of talent there. The problem that they have, and it's the same problem they've had since, well, basically since 1900s when they first started touring, is the fact that they don't make any money at home and they don't have a proper structure, partly because of the island set up. And just partly because they can't find a way to make enough money. So it doesn't matter if it's Leary Constantine or Garfield Sobers or Andre Russell. All three of those people have the exact same problem, that if they want to be paid what they are worth in the marketplace, they have to leave West Indies cricket. They quite often do that. And the bigger problem now is that there's probably more opportunities, and the format of cricket is splitting in the middle. So I think West Indies is very talented, and I think what you saw against England was a bunch of younger, talented people trying to make a name for themselves. The problem is that some of those guys who made those names, Chemo Paul and O'Shane Thomas and Hetmeyer, all those sorts of guys are going to be pulled towards these other leagues. So they can have the same problem again. The very talented players are going to have to leave because if they want to make money at the way that cricket is currently structured, they can't make money from the West Indies team. So I think what you saw is a bunch of young, talented players coming together and be. The bigger problem, though, isn't that. It's whether they keep any of these young, talented players around. And on almost 100 years of history, you'd have to say no.
Uh, we have seen like about the West Indies team. I remember back in 2009 Champions Trophy when they fielded a bunch of youngsters after Chris Gale and all the older players. They decided to go on a strike for the payroll because they were not paid. And ever since that, the problems in West Indies cricket has been always there, and players refusing central contracts just to play in T20 leagues around the world. So, do you think like T20 leagues around the world, such as the IPL, the Big Bash League, or you can say the T20 Blast in England, that has like reduced the competitive balance in international cricket?
Well, Garfield Sobers was picked to play for the West Indies, and instead was going decided to play for his club side in Lancashire. Uh, that happened over 50 years ago. So what's the
Yeah.
difference between that and what's happening now? The difference is there's more opportunities, but the same thing happened. Leary Constantine toured with the West Indies in the 1927, I think, the first time before they were a test team. And part of the reason he came over was to get a contract playing club cricket in England. Like, so what you've just said from 2009, I'm telling you that this is a 100-year-old problem for West Indies
So
cricket.
like this has always been constant with West Indies cricket, and there is nothing new about it.
They don't make enough money. Their domestic structure doesn't make enough money. That it isn't professional enough. And the thing you talk about with the strike, I mean, the fact that their players have had to go on strike twice tells you that there's a problem with the actual structural organisation of West Indies cricket. This is not a
Uh,
problem of. This is not. It's not like the West Indian cricketers are, less patriotic or less nationalistic or less want to play international cricket. It's that if you're an Australian cricketer, you make, David Warner still makes more money playing Test cricket for Australia than he does playing T20 cricket around the world. Chris Gale doesn't. Chris Gale doesn't make a fraction of that amount of money. Now, if Chris Gale was told tomorrow that he could play Test cricket, well, look, maybe he's not the perfect example, he's a bit old, but if Hetmeyer was told tomorrow that he could make $3 or $4 million a year representing the West Indies and $2 million a year playing in T20 leagues, he wouldn't pick the T20 leagues. He would pick the place where he can put his financial future in, but we can trust that he's going to have enough money to feed, a family and a girlfriend and buy cars and buy houses. Realistically, these athletes have 15-year careers if they're good. Most athletes only have, a really good 3 or 4 years that they can cash in. So, of course, they are going to pick the place where there is more financial inducements. And until international cricket sorts itself out with league situation, it either eats itself from within with these franchise competitions, or it works out a way to get around that. And this isn't just the West Indies problem. The only reason that it's hurting the West Indies is because for all the talk about they weren't very good, it's actually the amount of talent that they have over there, which is phenomenal, which is really well suited to T20 formats. But realistically, it's that talent that they have that is draining out. If they were less talented, like the recent Sri Lankan team, they wouldn't have as many players leaving. But it wasn't that long ago we were talking about all the Sri Lankan players potentially not being available for Sri Lanka. So it wasn't that long before that we were saying the same thing with New Zealand players, and we still have. We have, Mitchell McClenaghan is a freelance cricketer. And not much is made of that, but he's a freelance cricketer because he can make more money as a freelance cricketer than he can be as a fringe player for New Zealand. So that means that there's a problem with the entire setup. And here's the thing, there's always been a problem with the setup. Up until the 80s, the only sort of players that ever made money from cricket were English players because of the county setup, which is essentially a franchise league structure. So it tells you something, that the franchise league structures actually pay the players better. And so unless we do that as a cricket, we're going to keep losing people. And, Rashid Khan will get money from the government to continue to play for Afghanistan. But the second and third tier Afghanistani players won't. So we've already seen how good they are at T20 cricket. They have, they only have, as I said, some of them as little as 3 or 4 years to make their money. Some of them as long as 10 or 15 years to make their money. They're going to have to pick the jobs that pay them. And realistically, that's probably not going to be playing for the Afghan national side.
Enough about cricket, like West Indies cricket and Afghanistan cricket. Let's talk about you. How did you get into cricket and cricket journalism?
Well, my father played cricket. Well, my whole family played cricket. All my uncles played cricket. And so I was born on a Monday, I think. And then there was a bye week the week after, and then the following week after, my dad had to play, so I was taken to a game. So I was there at a week and a half old. So cricket was always part of my life, to be fair. As far as the journalism side came in, I was a filmmaker in Melbourne, and didn't actually make that much. Wasn't that successful, I suppose, is the best way of putting it. And when you're a filmmaker, sometimes you get jobs come in and they're very busy for a month or 2 months, and then you don't get any work for a while. So while you had no work, I just sort of for fun and for something to do, set up a cricket blog. And it turned out that the cricket blog became far more successful than the filmmaking was at that time. So I moved to the UK and started writing, and a lot of things went in my favor, and I did a lot of things right by accident. And here I am.
Let's talk about Death of a Gentleman. It obviously revolves around how the shortest format of the game, which is the T20 cricket, has started like sucking life out of Test cricket, which is obviously for me is the best format of the game ever because it tests your skills and stuff, and there is no way to hide if you fail in Test cricket. So, why did you decide to make Death of a Gentleman?
We wanted to make a film. We've been doing web series for Cricinfo for, I don't know, we've been doing web series for probably a year and a half. And as much fun as they were, we wanted to take it to the next level. Probably the next level should have been an online documentary series. But being that I was working with a guy called Sam Collins, his next level was let's make a feature documentary. And so I said, well, I'll happily make a documentary with you, but if we're going to do it, it has to be on something that matters. So the two obvious ones were corruption in cricket and the future of Test cricket. We thought that maybe trying to make our first documentary on the corruption of cricket might be a little bit tricky. So we decided to do something on Test cricket, and weirdly, it ended up being about corruption. It just became about a different kind of corruption, a corruption that I mean, you say T20 cricket sucking the life force out of Test cricket. I'm not sure I agree with that, to be honest. I think there are more Test cricket fans now who follow the game more now than there ever has been before. I think the people who are sucking
I
the
mean,
life force.
there are Test cricket fans. Obviously, there are loads of Test cricket fans, and I have friends who like Test cricket. But every time I speak with people, they're like, "Well, Test cricket is boring." Or as the IPL season is starting now, my friends in India, they are like, "Well, IPL is starting." These people, they have never went to the ground and watched a game of county cricket, which is the Ranji Trophy in India, and I'm not sure they have ever tried to watch Test cricket or they
Yeah,
just
but
want to watch
you're
T20
talking about
cricket.
two different things. You're talking about two completely different things. So that's not what I said. I didn't say T20 cricket wasn't popular. I didn't say it wasn't more popular. What I said was that there are more Test cricket fans now than there have ever been. Okay, so if you want to go back, to one of the most incredible time, involved two scores over 300, probably the longest innings we've ever had from a batsman, and then Garfield Sobers goes out the next test and breaks the world record. No one saw that series. It was very small crowds in the West Indies because it was West Indies versus Pakistan. There's almost nothing written about that series because there were very few cricket journalists there. The same series had, if it was played today, you'd be able to follow it on Cricinfo, on Crickbars, or on Twitter. The same series, if you'd be able to follow it today, it would be broadcast around the world. You'd be able to legal stream it if you couldn't afford a legal broadcast. That would be written about in multiple newspapers. It would be a huge, huge event. There are more Test cricket fans now who follow the game and who are invested in the game and are willing to pay to watch the game than there has ever been before. And I say this over and over again, and people don't seem to understand that a part of this is the way that technology has changed, but also part of this is that Test cricket is actually quite popular. What you're saying is there's another form of cricket that's more popular. I don't see that as the problem. I find it really hard to think of that. That doesn't mean that T20 doesn't bring other challenges, some of which we've already talked about. And there'll be more and more challenges. But realistically, I didn't get into cricket because of Test cricket. I got into cricket because my family played club cricket. I got into cricket because I went and watched Victoria play one-day games at the MCG in domestic cricket. That's how I got into cricket. I don't care how a 12-year-old gets in. I don't care if his first memory is of a test match. I care that he learns about cricket. I care that a woman can turn on the TV and can see another woman, or a girl turns on the TV and can see a woman playing cricket. I care about those things. I care little about this idea that Test cricket must prevail because it's special. The reason I think Test cricket should prevail is because it has a special place in a lot of people's hearts, and that's not what's happening at the moment. We're not making as much money off Test cricket as we should, which is bad business. We're not trying to grow Test cricket the way that we should, and we're not trying to safeguard Test cricket and ensure that it continues to go. So I see these things as completely separate. I've got no problem with T20 cricket bringing in new fans and being more popular than Test cricket. That's fine. That's great. As long as people are playing cricket, I don't care if it's backyard cricket, indoor cricket, beach cricket, or T20 cricket. My
What do you
problem
think
is,
about 100 ball cricket?
yeah, I don't have a problem with that either. I don't think it's needed, but that's a different point. But as I said, look, I played indoor cricket. I played indoor cricket with a bunch of blokes for years who never played a game of outdoor cricket and never watched any cricket on TV. But as far as I was concerned, they're still part of the cricket family because they're willing to play indoor cricket. So it doesn't matter to me what format of cricket we're talking about. What matters to me is when you have a situation, which is what the film is really about. In the end, is not about Test cricket or T20 cricket. What it's really about at the end is that there are a bunch of people who were manipulating the sport for their own personal interests. And they were looking after either their own national identity or their own personal identities. Either way, it's terrible. And because of that, Test cricket was being sidelined. That bothers me because I know how much it means to young Afghanistani players, young island players, young Nepalese players, young Hong Kong players who they want to eventually get to the top of cricket. And the top of cricket for most cricketers, still to this day, is Test cricket, right? And
Yeah.
if that is not available because of a bunch of bad business decisions and a bunch of corruption within the sport, that is heartbreaking. If Test cricket dies because fans don't like it anymore and they were given a good opportunity to like it, that's fair. That's how life goes. Do you know what I mean? The gladiators still aren't out in the ring killing lions. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Things move on. I've got no problem with that. But my problem, that's not what the film was about. The film was about people who are actively allowing that to happen. And in fact, sowing the seeds for international cricket to die at times. That is not acceptable.
Well, as like you have said, the most of the cricketers from the smaller nations, they want to play the pinnacle of the game, which is the Test cricket. And if the opportunity is not available, they want to play, you can say, the one day cricket or T20 cricket. What do you think about like ICC restricting the Cricket World Cup to 10 teams?
Oh, it's terrible. It's stupid. It's moronic. I mean, I've been saying it for so long now. I think I've been saying it since about 2012 or 2013, whenever they first came up with this stupid idea. Uh, it doesn't make sense. They've got two limited tournaments. They have the Champions Trophy and then the Champions Trophy Plus, which they call the World Cup. Uh, it's short-sighted. It's bad. It's bad from a business perspective because eventually these other groups are going to come in and going to pay for TV rights. So it doesn't matter if that's a big country like America or China or Japan or a small country like Nepal or Afghanistan or wherever. Realistically, you want more fans to watch the game, and so you're limiting that every time you set up a tournament this way. So that's the very obvious basic way. But the other thing is that a World Cup should really be about opportunities for everyone in cricket to make the best they can, and a platform to show that cricket isn't just played by the 6 or 7 teams that we think it is played for, right? Or the 8 or 9 teams, or the 10 or 11 teams, but actually the world does play it. That we do have over 100 teams
We
in
have,
the
I
World
guess,
Cup.
105 teams playing cricket at this point of time, which people don't believe because the World Cup is contested by 10 teams.
It's ridiculous. I mean, look, it doesn't make any sense, and it's the same problems. The reason that we only have 10 major teams at this stage, or 12 major teams, I think it would probably be fair to say now, is because of this small-mindedness. So Ireland and America both played cricket, and cricket went out of their way to make sure that neither of them got a fair go. So America had a very, very strong team in 1903, right? That's just a fact. Argentina had a very, very strong team in the 1920s and 30s. I think Argentina drew 2 series with the MCC in that period, right? Kenya made the World Cup semi-final in 2003.
Yeah.
We have shown consistently that there are other teams out there that can play cricket and that are interested in cricket, and cricket turns its back on them,
I
right?
mean, in fact, the first recorded international cricket match, if I'm not wrong, it was between USA and Canada.
It's not the first recorded cricket match. It's the first
I mean, like
recorded
the international. Yeah.
international sporting match. So yeah, that shows. And we were in Ireland recently for the first test. I went back there. The history of cricket in Ireland is it's older than some of these other countries are. Realistically, and Scotland has an incredible cricket history, and Nepal are so passionate about cricket. It's been picked up in Oman. The Rwanda cricket is picking up quickly. We saw what Kenya did for a few years there. There's a real interest for cricket in Japan, in Hong Kong. It's probably one of the strongest sports as well. There are so many places that do play cricket and can play cricket and love cricket. I wasn't that long ago, I was contacted by someone who ran the Mexican Women's Cricket League. There's cricket everywhere. And the reason that there aren't more strong teams is because of the way that we have protected it. We have run cricket like an elitist gentleman's club, and that's what we are still doing with this World Cup. And if we continue to do that, that's the biggest problem for cricket. It's not T20 cricket. The biggest problem for us is if we don't continue to grow it. Eventually, those sorts of insular things die. And if you want a really good example of when sport goes wrong from an elitist point of view, look at golf over the last couple of years. When I started the documentary in 2011, we'd go to investors and they'd be like, cricket just needs to be more like golf. And I'd be sitting in these meetings going to these people, look, I'm not saying that you guys are wrong, but golf doesn't have any young players. And it's almost impossible to play golf if you're a young person at the moment, right? And then golf suddenly went through a huge trough and is now, looking at versions like of T20 itself and trying to get young kids back onto the course because they made it such an elitist sport. And then do you know what happened? All the 30 and 40-year-olds who used to turn to golf went to cycling. They lost a whole generation of golfers in one foul swoop, and there were no young people to replace them. Cricket, it's a different kind of problem with cricket, but we don't know that the subcontinent's passion for cricket will last forever. We know that they have it now, but we don't know that it'll be there in 10, 20 or 30 years' time. So if we're not actively trying to make sure that cricket is a part of as many countries as possible, it wasn't that long ago that India was all about hockey. And
Yeah.
then they stopped being good at hockey and suddenly they lost interest. That's what happens to nations. That happens all the time. And, India at the moment, and it's not just India, you could put India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, a lot of their national identity is wrapped up in the cricket team at the moment, right? For India, they're going to do what happened to other countries like Australia, for instance, and New Zealand, is eventually your national identity isn't wrapped up in the cricket team anymore because you're worldwide players and you're involved in other things and you're especially for India because they'll become such a huge economic, well, they already are a huge economic force, but they'll become such a huge political force and they're already starting to do that the cricket team won't be as important, right? And so realistically, from a business point of view and from a just making sure that the game continues to thrive point of view, you have to make sure as many countries as possible play it. The 10-team World Cup does not do that.
So what do you think will be like how many teams in an ideal 50 over World Cup should be there?
I mean, I don't know if there's an ideal number at the moment. I would say that associate cricket's never been stronger, and we're inviting less of them to World Cups. You're probably looking at 16 teams over the next maybe 5 to 10 years, and then at the end of the second or third World Cup cycle, have a look at how good the 15th and 16th teams are coming through. The quality of the 11th and 12th, 13th, 14th teams are so much stronger than they were 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and certainly 20 years ago. And we had that many teams in our World Cups back then, and didn't seem to be that big a problem. I don't remember everyone turning off the World Cup because the USA were playing in it, or other random countries were involved in it. So realistically, I think 16 teams is probably makes the most sense. And then obviously you're probably looking in the future at over 20. And then if cricket continues to develop outside of the major nations at the rate it is, you would hope that within 10 to 15 years they'd be looking at a 32-team World Cup. But they have to invest in that. They have to safeguard that. They have to continue to grow the game. They have to make sure what happened to Kenya doesn't keep happening to teams. We can't have a team from an associate level get really good and then fall off the map. Cricket can't allow that anymore because they've got to grow every team. When a team like Nepal or Rwanda or Japan a couple of years ago breaks through and has some success, there has to be a system there that continues to push them. Even if Japan and Rwanda never end up in a World Cup, they have to be playing a good enough level of cricket that they're pushing the teams who are at that World Cup level. And that's sport. This idea in sport, cricket it's crazy. I love that you can be a test. You're given your special test status once and you have it forever, no matter how well or bad you play. So that's like saying that Jesse Owens should still be allowed to qualify for the US in the sprinting because of how good he was in the Olympics. Back
I,
all those years ago. It's a ridiculous thing that we believe in cricket. That makes no sense to me. You should be fighting for your test status all the time. If that is the elite form of the game, you should be fighting for that. The same way that you should be qualifying for a World Cup every time. Look at the kick in the ass that the West Indies cricket got from having to qualify for a World Cup. You incentivize. I don't want to
yeah.
get don't want to get too economics in this, but realistically, I work in cricket as a journalist and now as an analyst working for cricket teams and general manager running one cricket team as well, right? You need incentives. If there is no incentives to be good, that is why cricket did not develop at the pace that probably some of the other sports do, like baseball and basketball in America. There was a financial incentive for those to develop, whereas there was no actual financial reason for cricket to develop because it was almost run like state organizations. So realistically, those sorts of incentives, which is if you can lose a bunch of one days if you want, but you're going to have to qualify for that World Cup, and you're going to have to go over to Ireland and play on their green tops, and qualify for that World Cup. And the West Indies have shown it's not that easy. These associate teams, they are used to. This is the thing that we never think about. Those associate guys, almost every time they go out in the field, it's one of the most important games that they've ever played for their country. We don't have that in the top level international cricket because we have bilateral series, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And speaking about Olympics, like over the past few years, various host cities of the Olympic committees, they have been trying to push T20 cricket for the Olympics to make it a global sport, while ICC have been refusing it to happen. Like they don't want cricket to be included in it in the Olympics. How do you think it is, like you can say, barring cricket from becoming a global sport? Like in Olympics, obviously there will be various countries like say China, America, and various African nations, various South American nations participating in the game, and it sort of has a global audience, and there is, you can say, some kind of incentives attached to it, like a gold Olympic medal. How, do you think the ICC should allow cricket to be played in the Olympics?
Yeah, it's not so much just an ICC thing, because there are people within the ICC who are desperate for the cricket to be in the Olympics. It's basically, do you know what it is? It's a privileged position. So I've seen this online. There's a few cricket journalists. Every time cricket in the Olympics is brought up, they go, oh, we don't need cricket in the Olympics. We already have enough cricket, right? And I understand what they're saying. They're thinking, I work for the English, Indian, or I work in Indian, English, or Australian men's cricket. We don't need cricket at the Olympics. And for those three major nations, especially, they don't, right? There's nothing that Australia, England, or India would get out of that other than one extra gold medal every couple of years, right?
Yeah,
But for women's cricket and for disabled cricket, it would be an absolute gold mine. For associate cricket, it would be an absolute gold mine. So when people say cricket doesn't need the Olympics, what they're saying is men's international top level cricket doesn't need cricket in the Olympics. Every other level of cricket is desperate to be in the Olympics. Well, we're about to have a cricket World Cup, a disabled cricket World Cup in England, right?
yeah,
And there's only 5 teams coming, and they can't call it a World Cup, and it isn't really a World Cup. Australia's not sending a team, for instance. Don't tell me disabled cricket wouldn't be a huge boom by it being in the Olympics, right? Don't tell me that women's cricket couldn't get huge funding in countries that so far. I mean, think about this: if you're Pakistan and you don't win that many Olympic medals, and you've got suddenly women's cricket in the Olympics, you're a chance of a bronze medal there.
yeah,
Little bit of investment, a little bit of time and effort into that team, you're a chance of a bronze medal. If you really invest, maybe a gold or a silver, right? And the same with Sri Lanka, who are already, have shown some really good things in women's cricket. So realistically, I mean, Olympics is a no-brainer. The political side of it is, if you take away what I was talking about before, the sort of elite privileged view of the cricket, but the political side of it is that the ICC are sort of caught between two things. They want to have these test leagues and ODI leagues, and they want to sell these deals, and they basically want to run all international cricket, which I think is probably fair and maybe better for the game. But you can understand that the bigger boards, especially, and even some of the smaller boards, are not quite sure about that. So until that happens, and the ICC has a permanent revenue model through Test cricket leagues and ODI cricket leagues that they can sell the rights to one particular company rather than every country selling the rights individually. Until the ICC get a cut of that pie, they want an extra T20 World T20, right?
yeah.
I
I
get
mean,
that.
but if you again look at the other sports such as football, even though football has various continental competitions, the World Cup and the Confederations Cup, but there is still football in the Olympics.
Yeah, but there's only one World Cup. We don't have one World Cup. We have one day World Cup. We have one Champions Trophy. We have 2 World T20s every 4-year cycle, right?
Yeah,
Now the reason that happens is because the ICC, to be fair to them, don't make that much money, so they have to cash in with those tournaments, right? But this is where the problem becomes, because realistically, if you cut out either the Champions Trophy or the World T or one of the extra World T20 World Cups, that's where the Olympics would fit. And there's absolutely no reason not to do that, realistically, from a cricket standpoint. The only reason not to do that is that the ICC would make less money. And that's where we are, where that's basically where the impasse is at the moment. I think even a lot of people within, especially people who work within women's cricket and associate cricket and disabled cricket, that they just can't believe that cricket is in the Olympics. But that's the overall reason why. And also, there's a couple of England are a powerful nation, and they, in general, are against it because obviously most Summer Olympics are in their period, in their summer period, so they don't want to miss out on that. which is a selfish view, but that's how cricket boards work. And then there was a very weird situation for a little bit where the head of the BCCI, Srinivasan, and I think it was his brother, was the head of the Olympic Committee in India for a while as well.
There are many weird things happening over there. So.
Exactly, but basically those two, I think that they overlapped. But they were at one stage are both very powerful men within cricket and within the Olympics. And I would have suggested that if India wanted cricket to be in the Olympics, it would have been a snap of the finger. And clearly, for whatever reason, they didn't want that. And as you know, the Olympics are nowhere near as big in India as most of the other major sporting events are. So if India suddenly got completely obsessed by the Olympics in the way that a lot of other countries are, then you might see that change. You might just see, bang, okay, cricket's in the Olympics. But at the moment, there's no real, what would you say, groundswell towards that. But yeah, it's a mistake.
Thanks for your time, Jarrod. It was nice having a conversation with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.